Have you ever had a burst of inspiration, maybe after a great trip or listening to a podcast or a walk in nature, and you think, this is it. This is when I'm going to change my life. And then 2 weeks later, it's like it never happened. Well, me too. I've been there. I've done that. We all have. But that's why I've moved over the years away from relying on resolutions and thinking more in terms of life experiments, prototyping my passions. So I've done these small, sometimes larger, intentional projects that help me prototype and test what makes life meaningful and what my purpose is in life. Welcome back to the Good Life Lab. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm a former therapist and college professor turned YouTuber and content creator, sharing my experience with my clients, with myself, things I've done to experiment with my own mental health and well-being. We are on day 8 of this series I'm calling From Languishing and Lost to a Good Gay Life. If you've been following along, I've also encouraged you to start a Come Alive list or a life list of items of dreams, goals, passions, curiosities that you have that might be stepping stones to what's next in your life. So today we're taking this next big step of taking your life list items that we've been talking about and turning them into a good life project, which is a real life experiment designed by you for you. You see, I've learned, and I'm still learning, that life change doesn't happen in a lightning bolt moment. That can happen and have significant things turn around because of an experience that you had. More often, I'm seeing that life change, significant life change, has happened for me and for my clients through tiny experiments that begin with prototyping your passions and interests, and those turn into longer lasting habits and life change over time. I've also seen that change happens for me as I've aligned my passions and interests, my Come Alive items, with my values, with my strengths, with even my needs in life, and honed those into a project that helped me accomplish what's most important to me. I think it's important to note that this Good Life project I've been talking about is not a self-help sprint or a productivity hack that you hear about a lot on YouTube. It's a framework based on research that shows how people find greater meaning and purpose while also boosting belonging, well-being, and life satisfaction. And over the years, I've seen how constructing my life in terms of a project has helped me grow in ways I never fully grasped at the time or imagined could be possible. I've mentioned on this channel a number of projects I've done over the years, and I'm just going to refer to those again. One of the projects I did, I initially called 12 Months to Live. I asked myself, what would I do if I had 12 months to live, and crafted this year-long project around that. I started with my life list. I had 12 items that I narrowed down to things I would pursue each month for that year based on my passions and how people figured out their life calling and purpose. Another year-long project I did was called the Gratitude Visit, or the Visit, based on research that I found, positive psychology research that said, if you write a letter of gratitude to somebody and read it to them, deliver it to them, read it to them, that your mood, as well as the person you read the letter to, could be boosted for up to a month afterwards. And so I did that. I constructed one letter a month and traveled all over the US, delivering letters, reading it to people, just to see how my mood changed over that year. I was dealing with seasonal depression at the time, wanted to see if that could change things. That was in 2017, so 8 years ago, and I haven't had the same level of seasonal depression since then. So this project really helped me change that permanently, I would say. I still have melancholy moments, but nothing like I did before. And then the last project I'll mention here is Project 46. So that was during my midlife. I was 45 turning 46, and I was in another depressed season of my life trying to see life change. And so I started with my life list of items and narrowed it down to several, and then which became 3 intentions for that year: love and life, peace with God, and a job I like. And those were my intentions for the year. Those evolved over time, but the core intentions remained the same. And I saw 2 years later, I was able to look back and see how my life transformed based on those intentions. But what about you? How can you begin your good life project? How can you begin to shape it into something that's meaningful for you? I mentioned last time you want to take your top 3 items and maybe pick one, if you can, narrow it down to one that seems like an overarching theme. So my process was, as I mentioned previously, taking this long list of items, these brainstorm life list items, narrowing them down to 7, refining them, and turning them into 3 intentions that I could follow through with during that year. If you haven't already refined some of your ideas from events to more embodiments, like what you want to become, I want you to ask yourself this question. What's the deeper intention behind each item on your list that you've narrowed down to maybe, hopefully 3? What's the deeper intention behind those 3 items? The best year-long projects I've designed for myself and with my clients is really less about accomplishing a certain event, but it's about cultivating who you are and learning about what makes you come alive and how following those passions can lead you to something greater. So hopefully you have refined your top 3 items and you've chosen one, or you're able to see how you could create themes out of 3 that go together that you can work on consecutively or at the same time. I mentioned this last time, and I think it's really important to do the work of brainstorming yourself. But if you feel stuck in some way, I think talking to somebody else about it, sharing your ideas, and maybe getting some feedback from them, but also using ChatGPT or another AI to support you in creating this project for yourself. Let me mention too that I'm starting this wait list for gay men that want to walk through this process together. And I think it works best in a group, and especially for like-minded men who are kind of on the same journey together. So please see the link below. Something else that's been really helpful to me is to give my project a title. I've mentioned a few. The Year I Lived is one, the Gratitude Visit is another one, Project 46 is another one, and then even refining the subtitle. So I'm going to share with you my process over, this took, again, several weeks of journaling ideas that I settled in one. And it's just another way of reinforcing, for me, what I wanted to work on for that year. And so these are some examples of my project title and subtitle. Project 46, my year of learning to love life as I move from blues to bliss. Project 46, life begins when loving it. Project 46, the art and war of loving life more. Sounds poetic. Project 46, the art and war of love and more. I love those last 2, but eventually over the few weeks and months of working with my life list and setting my intentions for the year, I landed on one that felt more appropriate for what I was dealing with. So Project 46, love and other dreams. And that's one I settle on for most of the time. If it helps, I think it can help to name your project. It helps you remember it, helps keep it in the front of your mind and on your heart. So take the time to think about a cool, fun, memorable name that you can give to your project. All right, so I'm going to share with you a bit of research to help you move forward with this. Hopefully you've narrowed down to a few items and you've chosen one and you have a title perhaps. And now it's time to prototype. And I want to share with you a bit of the science of mini projects as support for this approach. Design thinkers and behavioral scientists, like those behind Atomic Habits, Tiny Experiments, and Designing Your Life, emphasize the power of small experiments. These are short, low-risk ways of testing whether or not your ideas are energizing enough to sustain over time. These tiny experiments are also a way of testing whether or not this idea you have fits your lifestyle and is in alignment with your core values before you go all in. This can be tricky because you want to test whether or not this idea is worthy of your time for a year-long project, but you also don't want it to get you off track and just give up. So I want you to be thinking in terms of a month-long commitment for now, but don't let the experience over the next 30 days demotivate you from continuing on for the year. Make sure that you use these next 30 days as a refinement period and add to or adjust what you're doing, but stick to what you're doing. I had this experience with one of my projects, the Gratitude Visit, where I had 12 months I committed to for writing letters based on research that said if you write and read a letter of gratitude that your mood will be boosted for up to a month. My first letter was to my mom, and I took her to IHOP and read the letter and definitely found that the experience, I felt more grounded and my mood was better, but it only lasted for like 2 days. And then I was back to baseline. And I had this time of thinking, do I really want to commit a year to this? Because it really doesn't seem to be helping me personally much. But I had this come to Jesus moment where I thought, well, it's not just about me. It's about sharing my gratitude to other people. And that propelled me on long enough for the next year, even longer. I think I went 18 months. And I'm so glad I did, because that transformed my neurochemistry and it really helped me sustain a better mood over the last 8 years. I think there's a lot of value in prototyping for at least a month, but don't let that, if it's a kind of a negative experience, let it refine what you want to do, not distract or detract from what you want to do. So I just want to give you an example from my Project 46 and how this prototyping worked for me. Remember, my 3 intentions were love and life, peace with God, and a job I like. And for each one, I built some ideas for what that looked like for me. So love and life meant finding a partner, but also building community. So I started off with a couple of things. I started dating apps as a way of finding my life partner and putting myself out there, and also to build community, which was another aspect of this love and life intention. I joined a gay men's running group for that year, and so that's another kind of way I was prototyping and trying to build community in this love and life intention. My second intention was peace with God, and along with participating in therapy for myself during the season of life, because I was in this big transition, I also saw a spiritual director for a period of time, just to process my journey, my faith journey, along with my sexual identity. So that's one way I began to prototype in that area of peace with God. And the third area of finding a job I liked, that was really just, it came down to applying for jobs in higher education. And that was an easy way to begin to prototype. So I had these 3 intentions, and I began to just step into those a little bit that first month to test it out and let that guide me towards what the year would look like. The goal really isn't perfection, it's feedback. It's experimenting with your ideas and testing them in real time, in real life. So the goal, again, with prototyping anything, a new product, is to use the feedback you get to refine and improve your process. The hope is that as you pursue and live out your harmonious passions, those interests that energize and express who you are, that you will experience greater levels of happiness, flow, and meaning. This is how passion turns into direction. All right, so here's the practice for today. I'd like to end with a reminder of what I've talked about, but also how can you make this really practical in your life. I want you to review and refine your top 3 items, and maybe it's become one from your life list or become a live list. Hopefully you've chosen one or a collection of 2 or 3 that you can begin to shape into this good life project that I've been talking about. I also encourage you to give your project a title, a name, and hopefully along the way, you don't have to wait till the 30-day mark, but you're able to ask yourself the question, how can I use this experience to refine my year-long project and commit to it? So it's at a point where I can commit to it for this year in order to see lasting, meaningful change. Coming up next time, we'll be looking at the P in Compass, which stands for powers and personal strengths, and how those can support your efforts in your project, your good life project. Basic research has shown that if you understand and utilize your strengths, you can be more successful and you'll just enjoy your life a lot more. And a couple things, please subscribe if you haven't already. It really gives me feedback on what's working, what's not, and I'd love to hear from you in that way. And then also, I have this wait list I've mentioned for queer men who might be on this journey of trying to figure out their life purpose and meaning. And I'd love to, at some point, meet with a group of men to explore that together. I think it's best done as part of a community, so I'm trying to build that community. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.